Outpost Echo drifted in silence above the dead planet Varnus 4. The station was cold, quiet, and alone. Most days, nothing happened. That's how the crew liked it. Commander Jax Forn stood by the observation window. He didn't speak. He rarely did. He just watched, always thinking, always planning. His uniform was simple. His face was calm, but behind his eyes was a mind that never rested. The crew respected him. Some feared him. Jax didn't lead with speeches or orders shouted across rooms. He led by presence. When he walked into a room, people fell silent. Not because he demanded it, because he didn't have to. Outpost Echo was a mining and research station. It had a small crew, just 35 people. Most were scientists or engineers. Only a few were soldiers. Jax was one of them. He had been sent here to watch and protect. No one expected much action. This part of space was supposed to be peaceful. But peace didn't mean safety. One morning cycle, the station's AI picked up something strange. A signal. It wasn't loud. It wasn't strong. It was buried in the background noise of space, but it was there. "Commander," said Tech Officer Lyra, turning from her console. "You might want to see this." Jax walked over. He didn't say anything, just looked at the screen. The signal was faint. It pulsed slowly. A pattern. Not random, not natural, and not human. Lyra looked uneasy. "It's encrypted. Old Virix code, I think. But it's been masked. Someone didn't want this found." Jax didn't respond. He studied the signal. After a moment, he gave a single nod. "Should I alert Earth Command?" Lyra asked. Jax didn't answer right away. He turned and walked to the control panel. His fingers moved fast. He copied the signal to a private channel and began decoding it himself. Behind him Lyra waited, but she didn't press him. Everyone knew when Jax Forn went quiet, something was wrong. For the next few hours, Jax stayed in his quarters. He barely moved. His eyes were locked on the screen, tracing symbols, breaking layers of code. Line by line, the message became clear. It wasn't a friendly signal. It was a tactical transmission, coordinates, fleet movements, countdown timers. It was from the Virix Coalition, and it was aimed at Outpost Echo. Jax leaned back in his chair. His face stayed calm, but his mind raced. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't a game. The Virix weren't just probing, they were planning something. He stood and walked to the comm station. One button press connected him to Earth Command. "Commander Vorn. This is Control. Go ahead." Jax didn't waste words. Virix signal intercepted. Coordinates match Echo's position. Suggest immediate response. There was a pause on the other end. "Understood, Commander. We'll review the data. For now, maintain normal operations." Could be a false reading. Jax said nothing. He ended the call. False reading. That's what they always said, until it was too late. He returned to the control room. Lyra looked up from her console. "Well?" she asked. "Nothing," Jax said. He turned to the main control board and began issuing silent commands. "Tighten internal security. Check power grids, scan for hidden devices, prepare emergency lockdown procedures." The crew didn't know why, but they felt it. Something had changed. Commander Vorn was moving with purpose. He wasn't speaking, and that silence meant danger. The lights in the command center dimmed slightly as the station shifted to night cycle. Most of the crew headed to rest, but Commander Jax Vorn stayed at his station, eyes fixed on the decoded message he had uncovered. He had broken through the Vorex encryption layer by layer. The more he read, the more clear it became. This wasn't a routine scan or accidental signal. It was a hidden battle plan. The message listed ship types, attack routes, and even an estimated time of arrival, less than 7 days. The Vorex weren't just watching, they were coming. Jax saved the data on a secure drive and locked it with his personal code. Then, without saying a word, he walked to the lower engineering level. There he found Chief Engineer Nolan working alone. Nolan looked up. "Commander, something wrong." Jax paused, then spoke. "Routine inspection. Defense grid status. Nominal. Running on standard cycle. Nothing out of order. Boost it. Shift to combat readiness. Quietly. Nolan blinked. Sir, we expecting trouble? Jax met his eyes. Maybe. That was all he said. That was all Nolan needed. He nodded and got to work. No questions. Back in the main control room, Tech Officer Lyra was watching the signal too. She had saved her own copy and continued running simulations. When Jax returned, she turned to him, her face pale. It's a battle formation. Stealth carriers, heavy warships. Commander, this is an invasion fleet. Jax didn't respond right away. He stepped beside her, checked her findings, and nodded. We need to warn Earth Command, Lyra said, her voice rising. This isn't a drill. Jax lifted a hand, just slightly. She stopped talking. They won't listen, he said calmly. But, already tried. They don't believe it. Lyra's hands clenched. Then what do we do? Jax tapped the console. Prepare, he said, silently. Over the next 2 days, changes moved through Outpost Echo like a slow ripple. Security systems were doubled. Backup weapons were unlocked. External sensors were recalibrated to scan deeper into space. Jax ordered extra food and medical supplies moved closer to the central core. Most of the crew didn't notice. Those who did kept quiet. They knew their commander didn't panic. If he was moving like this, there was a reason. At night, Jax barely slept. He ran drills in the simulator. He studied Virex's battle patterns from past wars. He planned escape routes, fallback points, and ambush positions inside the station. He spoke only when needed. His presence alone was enough to keep things moving. On the 3rd day, a cargo shuttle arrived. It was scheduled, but something felt off. Jax watched from the control tower as the ship docked. It responded to hails. Its transponder matched. But Jax's eyes narrowed. He turned to Lyra. Run a scan. Deep internal sweep. Ignore ID tags. Lyra did. The results came back seconds later. There's a hidden signal inside the ship's core systems. Mast. Jax's voice was flat. They're already here. Lyra swallowed. Saboteurs. Jax nodded once. Lock down cargo bay. Send 2 guards. Quietly. No alarm. As the crew moved, Jax stared out the observation window. This wasn't a false reading. This was war. Outpost Echo didn't sleep that night. Inside the cargo bay, 2 armed guards moved silently through the dim light. Their weapons were drawn. Their boots made no sound on the metal floor. The shuttle sat still. Its doors were closed, engines quiet. Nothing moved. Then the inner door hissed open. 3 figures stepped out. Humanoid, dressed in cargo uniforms. But something wasn't right. Their movements were too stiff, too perfect. One of them looked straight at the security camera and smiled. That was all Jax needed. Seal the bay, he ordered. Heavy doors slid shut behind the guards. Jax tapped the screen. EMP. Pulse now. Lyra hesitated. There are humans in there. No, Jax said. There aren't. She pressed the command. A deep hum vibrated through the floor. Then a flash of blue light. The 3 figures dropped instantly. Their bodies twitched, limbs locking unnaturally. Synthetic. Virex's infiltration units, machine copies of humans, used to gather intel and sabotage systems. Jax stared at the screen. They're already testing us, he said quietly. Later that morning, Earth Command responded. The message was short. Investigating your concerns. No evidence of hostile Virex action. Maintain calm and routine operations. Await further instruction. Jax didn't reply. He turned off the message and walked away. By midday, Outpost Echo was no longer a science station. It was a fortress. Jax ordered the defense grid fully activated. Every turret, shield node and internal barrier checked and tested. Non-essential modules were powered down. The crew began rotating in combat shifts. Ammunition was distributed. Medical teams were briefed. And still, Jax barely spoke. He moved through the station, watching everything. He corrected mistakes with a gesture. He gave orders with only a glance. To the crew it felt like waiting in the eye of a storm. No one said it, but they felt it. Something was coming. That night, as Jack stood by the observation window, Lyra approached. "We picked up new movement," she said. "Outer range sensors. Could be debris. Could be cloaked ships." Jax didn't move. "How far?" 15 light minutes, he nodded. "Time. If they're headed here, 6 hours. Maybe less." Jax turned away from the window. "Prepare for contact," he said. "No broadcast, no warning." Lyra hesitated. "Commander, should we send a final message to Earth Command?" Jax looked at her. His voice was calm. They already had their warning. As the station entered night cycle again, the lights dimmed. Outside, the stars burned cold and steady. And in the dark between them, something moved. Jax stood alone in the command center. His hands were still. His eyes were focused. No fear, no panic, just silence. Because he knew, the next time the Viriks reached out, they wouldn't be sending a message, they'd be sending fire. The alarm didn't blare. Jax had ordered silence. At 03:000 station time, Outpost Echo's outer sensors lit up. Dozens of objects dropped from faster-than-light travel just beyond the planet's gravity. "They're here," Lyra said quietly. Commander Jax Vorn didn't flinch. He watched the data stream on the central screen. Enemy ships, Varix models, fast, heavily armed. No hails, no warnings, just movement. "Shields up," Jax said. "Lock down all sections. Stand by for impact." The command center shifted into red lighting. The crew moved quickly. No one screamed. No one panicked. Jax's calm spread like cold steel through the station. Outside, the stars blinked, and then one vanished. A beam of plasma tore across the void, slamming into the outer shield. The force rocked the station. "Direct hit on Sector 3, shouted Nolan. "Shields holding. Return fire," Jax said. Turrets along the station's spine came to life. They rotated, targeted, and fired. Blue energy bolts raced across space, hitting the nearest Varik scout ship. It spiraled and broke apart. The battle had begun. Inside the station, emergency lights glowed in tight corridors. Small teams moved fast. Engineers, medics, guards. Everyone had been trained. Everyone followed the plan. This was Jax Vorn's design. The Varik sent boarding pods. 5 of them struck the station's hull like claws. They latched on and cut through the metal. Jax tracked them in silence. "Teams Beta and Delta, intercept points, North Junction and Cargo Hall," he said through the comm. The humans met the Variks head-on. The aliens moved like insects, fast, many-limbed, armed with energy blades. But the humans fought smart. Traps were waiting. Choke points, auto turrets, gas bursts. Jax watched from the command center, marking every movement. His face never changed. Lyra turned to him. "They're splitting up, trying to confuse us. They'll regret that," Jax replied. In the maintenance tunnels, 2 Varik scouts crept forward. One of them paused, sensing something wrong. Then the floor dropped. A hidden shaft opened beneath them. They fell into darkness, straight into a magnetic trap. Elsewhere, in the storage bay, Jax's crew released steam vents and activated motion mines. Explosions shook the walls. The Varik screeched, falling back in confusion. Every corridor had a surprise. Every hallway had a purpose. This wasn't a random defense. It was a trap. In the main corridor, Jax finally moved. He walked calmly, alone toward the central node. He passed 2 injured crew members being carried by medics. He nodded once. No words, just presence. When he reached the central node, he tapped into the station's comms. A single message went out to the entire Varix fleet. A blank screen, a silent room. Then Jax appeared. He didn't speak. He just looked at the camera, calm, cold, ready. Then he cut the feed. No threats, no speeches. Silence. Overseer Threx, watching from his command ship, slammed his fist into the console. "Why doesn't he talk?" he growled. "Why doesn't he beg?" An officer spoke up. "Commander Vorn is known for restraint." Threx's eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "He's planning something." He turned to his fleet. "Send everything. Overwhelm them. I want that station broken." On Outpost Echo, Jack stood by the tactical display. More ships were coming. He didn't blink. "Hold position," he said. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The station shook again. Another blast hit the outer hull. Lights flickered. Sparks fell from a ceiling panel in the command center. "Shields at 42%. Lyra said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "They're not letting up." Commander Jax Forn stood still at the central console. He didn't speak. He didn't flinch. He watched. The Viriks had increased their attack. Now dozens of ships circled Outpost Echo. Missiles, plasma beams and particle cannons lit up the dark space. But the humans held their ground. Jax wasn't fighting to win a war. He was fighting to break their minds. In the shadowy lower levels of the station, a Viriks breach team moved in. They expected resistance. They found silence. No bullets, no shouting, no soldiers, just a dark hallway and cold air. The leader of the team tapped his translator. "Clear, move forward." They stepped ahead, weapons raised. Then behind them, a door closed. A vent hissed. Something moved in the shadows. A trap door dropped. One soldier fell into a sealed shaft. The others turned too late. A flash grenade blinded them. A turret activated from the ceiling. Firing stun pulses. Within seconds, the whole squad was down. No voice warned them. No human yelled. Only silence. And strategy. Back in the command center, Jax monitored every corridor, every camera feed. His plan was working. He was turning the Viriks' fear against them. Lyra looked at one of the open comm feeds. "Commander, listen." She pressed a key. Alien voices whispered over the signal. Viriks soldiers talking fast, afraid. "He's watching us. He never speaks. He's not human. He's something else." Jack said nothing. But inside, he knew it was working. Across the station, he activated ghost signals. Fake human movements, false energy signatures. The Viriks chased them down empty corridors. Traps waited. Decoy drones flew through the air ducts, mimicking footsteps and heat trails. Jax turned the station into a maze of fear. He didn't need to outgun the Viriks. He just had to make them believe they had already lost. On the Viriks' flagship, Overseer Thrix shouted at his crew. "Why haven't they surrendered? It's a mining station. They're not fighting like miners." One officer replied. "Their commander, he's unpredictable. He's quiet." Thrix's face twisted in anger. "I want that human brought to me. Alive." Inside Outpost Echo's power core, Jax moved with a small strike team. They set remote charges at key access points. "Just in case. We fall back here if we lose outer decks," Jax said. His voice was calm, low. His team nodded, listening carefully. "Keep moving. Don't leave a trace." As the cycle turned to night, most of the station was still under human control. The Viriks had lost half their boarding teams. Fear spread through their ranks. Some ships began to pull back, unsure of their commander's orders. Jax walked the station again, quietly, checking wounded, helping crew, reinforcing doors. No speeches, no drama, just actions. Later Lyra joined him on the upper deck. "They're scared of you," she said, half smiling. "They're calling you the Whispering Ghost." Jax didn't smile. "Let them." He turned back to the stars. The Viriks had numbers. He had silence. And silence was winning. The Viriks' fleet was falling apart. Some ships still circled Outpost Echo, firing at its damaged shields. But others drifted, uncoordinated and confused. On board those ships, Virik soldiers argued. Their commanders shouted orders. No one knew what was happening inside the station anymore. They had expected humans to scream, to panic. But instead they found traps, silence, and fear. And one man who never spoke unless it mattered. Commander Jax Vorn studied the battlefield from the command center. The outer deck had taken damage. Sections of the station were sealed off. Supplies were low, but morale strong. "Report," he said. "Shield holding at 18%. Lyra answered. "Power grid stable." Medical bay full but running. Jax nodded once. Time to finish this, he said. He pulled up a tactical map. His eyes locked on the largest Vyrix ship, the command vessel. That's where Overseer Thrix would be. And that's where Jax would strike. In the docking bay, Jax suited up. He wore reinforced combat armor, dark and silent. A small strike team joined him. 4 soldiers loyal and sharp. They said nothing as he approached. He pointed to a stealth shuttle. We go now. In and out. Take the bridge. The shuttle launched into the darkness. No signal, no light. It slid under the radar, through blind spots created by the station's jamming systems. The Vyrix didn't see it coming. They breached the command ship's hull with a silent drill. No explosions, no alarms. The team moved fast through the corridors, taking out guards with stun rounds and hand-to-hand strikes. Jax led them like a shadow. In the control room, Overseer Thrix stood before a massive display, watching the chaos unfold outside. Where is he? Thrix growled. Why won't he show himself? A door behind him opened. Jax stepped in, alone. Thrix spun around, shocked. Where's your army? Stace. Jax said nothing. He walked forward slowly. Thrix raised his weapon. Answer me. Jax stopped a few feet away. His eyes locked on Thrix's. The alien's hand trembled. You think silence is power? Thrix shouted. You think fear wins wars? Jax finally spoke. His voice was quiet, steady. No, I think you talk too much. Then he moved. In 2 steps he grabbed Thrix's arm, twisted the weapon away, and slammed the alien into the console. The fight was short. Jax's team stormed in seconds later and secured the bridge. He looked down at the control panel. 1 button, fleet-wide command override. Jax pressed it. Across the battlefield, Vyrix ships received a single command: retreat. They obeyed. Without their overseer, without coordination, they had no will to fight. The ships turned and jumped into deep space, leaving behind the wreckage of their failed invasion. Back on Outpost Echo, the station fell quiet again. Fires were out. Systems were stabilizing. The stars returned to their calm silence. Lyra sat at her console, watching the enemy ships vanish from the radar. She whispered, "They're running." Then she smiled. When Jax returned to the station, no one cheered. No one clapped. They didn't need to. He walked through the halls, calm as always. The crew stepped aside, nodding to him with silent respect. He nodded back. In his private log, he typed 1 line. Silence isn't weakness. It's the space where strength speaks loudest. Outpost Echo floated in silence once again. The stars had returned to stillness. The enemy was gone. The station, though damaged, stood strong. Burned walls, flickering lights, and patched systems told the story of what had happened. But only the people inside knew the truth. The war hadn't been won with numbers. It hadn't been won with noise. It had been won by silence. And by Commander Jax Forn. Repair crews moved through the station. Medics worked non-stop in the infirmary. Engineers rewired power lines and reconnected broken systems. Everyone worked without complaint. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. They followed Jax's example. He said little. He walked the station each day, checking every section. He spoke only to give orders or ask for updates. The rest was silence and presence. And for the crew, that was enough. Earth Command finally responded. Days after the battle, a large ship arrived in orbit. A message came through. We are here to assess the situation and take command. Jax stood in the command center, reading the words. He didn't reply. Instead, he walked away. The officers from Earth Command landed hours later. They walked through the station, asking questions, reviewing damage, trying to understand how a small mining station had repelled a full Vyrix fleet. Jax met with them once. He gave a short, clear report. Enemy breached station. Defenses held. Command ship captured. Vyrix retreated. One of the officers, a gray-haired man with polished boots, asked, "And what was your strategy, Commander Vorn?" Jax looked at him. Silence, he said. Then he stood up and left the room. The story of Outpost Echo spread fast through the human colonies. Reports mentioned traps, drones, hacked systems, but one detail kept repeating. Commander Jax Forn never raised his voice. Among alien circles, a new rumor spread. A human who didn't speak. A ghost who moved in silence. A mind they couldn't predict. They began calling him something else. The Silent One. One evening, Jax stood at the observation window alone. Lyra approached quietly. "They're calling you a legend," she said with a small smile. Jax didn't look away from the stars. "Legends talk too much," he said. Lyra chuckled. "They also don't save entire stations." He didn't reply. She stood beside him, watching the stars. "Will they come back?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. "If they do, we'll be ready." The station lights dimmed to night mode. The crew rested. Repairs continued. Peace returned. And Jax Forn remained as he always had been. Watchful, quiet, prepared. Because silence wasn't his weakness. It was his weapon. And across the stars, everyone knew now. When the human gets silent, you run.